Today I would like to talk about promise, async, await, and JavaScript. In order to understand the promise, we need to know about the callback functions. I have already talked about the callback functions in my previous videos, so I highly recommend to watch those first. Let's see what is promise in JavaScript. Promise is an object that returns a value which we hope to receive in the future, but not now, because the value will be returned by the promise in the future. It is very good for handling the asynchronous operation. I would like to start by giving some simple examples to get the concept of the promise, and then we will compare the callback function with a promise and we will see which one is better for handling the asynchronous operations. So let's suppose that you promise to learn JavaScript by next month. So let's do that in the code. We will start by creating the let learn JS equal to. In order to create the promise, we use the new constructor, new promise, and it will take resolve and reject in the parameter. To simulate this, I would like to use the setTimeout, and the setTimeout I would like to say before that, let complete equal to true. So we say that if your promise is completed, we say if promise or if complete is true, we will call the resolve, and the resolve will say I have completed the JS. Else it will call the reject. Reject will say I haven't completed the JS. Let's give this 3 seconds. So after the 3 seconds, it will return either reject or resolve. Okay, so now let's say learn JS, and now it is in the pending state. There's 3 states in the promise. It is either in pending, reject, or resolve. So after the 3 seconds, the pending will go to either reject or resolve. So after the 3 seconds, now it is resolved. Okay, so in order to consume the promise, we need to use the then.catch.finally. So let's use that, and we can also schedule a callback when the promise is either resolved or rejected. So let's change this to a function first. To make the example more clear, we say function make promise, and the make promise will take completed in the parameter. Okay, and now let's wrap the timeout in the function, and the function will return the new promise. Okay, now let's create a variable called learn.js equal to make promise, and the make promise, we don't even need this variable. We can put either true or false here. So let's say true. Okay, now we say that learn.js dot then. Now we can put the callback function. In the callback function, we say that if it is resolved, call this function. We say success, for example, or let me say, okay, let's say success, and this success function will return console.log success. And in case of reject, it will call the reason. Okay, so it will call the console.log reason. It will be something like, if we remove this, first let me comment this out. It will be something like function we will say console.log, for example, congrats, and if it return reject, we will say console.log, please try again. Okay, so here we consumed the then. So after the promise return either resolve or return, we put these two callback functions. The first callback function will be called only when the promise is resolved, and the second will be called only when the promise return the reject. So let's see this in the console. After the 3 seconds, it says congrats because it says true and it returned the resolve. And if we change this to false, for example, after 3 seconds, it will call the second callback function, which is please try again. We also have .catch. .catch will only call the second callback, which is this one. If there's a problem or error due to the network or something, then it will call that reject callback function. So let's comment this out, and then we say learn js.catch. We only need to put one callback function, so here we say console.log, please try again. So this callback function will only be called if it is rejected. So here it is false, which should return reject. So now let's run the function again. After that 3 seconds, it says please try again. But if it is return resolve, so we say true, it will not be called. The catch will only call the error, or if there's a problem or the promise, return the reject. So now let's run the function again that we have true here. After the 3 seconds, it will do nothing since it is not rejected. We can also change the then.catch here in the code as well. So we can say, let's comment this out first. So we can say learn js.then. If it was resolved, if the promise return resolved, we will say success console.log success, and if it was rejected, if it returned reject, we will say, for example, reason. It should give us a reason. We will say .catch. It should catch the reason. So here console.log reason. Okay, so here what it will do, it will see if the promise returned the resolve, it will call the then. If there was any error or if it was rejected, the return was rejected, it will call the catch. We can also change this with finally. We say finally. Finally means that either if it was resolved or reject, it will finally call this. So no matter what, if it is resolved or return, it will call the finally. So we will say, for example, message console.log message. So no matter what, if it is resolve or reject, the finally will be called at the end. So this was a very simple example about the promise to get the concept of the promise. In the next, I would like to compare the callback function with the promise and see which one is better for handling the asynchronous operation.